Hey guys, welcome back to another 3D printing video, and in this video we got the Anet ET4 Pro. So I've done the original ET4 about a year ago and it was a pretty good printer, and now we have the Pro. So in this video we're going to unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so this is the box that the ET4 Pro comes in. We have the logo here, and I think the correct way to pronounce it is Anet, not Anet like I do, but it is what it is. So here we have the dimensions of the box, 510 by 485 by 250, and the shipping label says it's 26 pounds. So let's go ahead and open the box. So it looks like they're using white soft foam. And this is what we see right on top. So we got a little sample of PLA filament, a belt with some zip ties, micro SD card adapter to USB with an extra nozzle, some bolts, and tools like Allen wrenches, a flat screwdriver, and an open-ended wrench. So here we have some documentation, which includes the manual, hot end assembly, and it's separately packed in a bag, and we'll take a closer look at it when we install it. So looking at the parts, it looks like we're pretty much, I guess, 90% assembled. Now let's go ahead and pull out this gantry. It looks like we have a zip tie here holding the lead screw, and everything is metal, including this extruder assembly. So yeah, overall looks like a really nice construction. All right, so let's see what else we got here. So it looks like here we have the build material. That's a sticker, and it's that really fine type, and there's no branding, it's just clean. Usually not too crazy about these, but we'll see how it works. We got lots of foam. And right below we can see the base nicely nestled in the box, and you guys can see how much protection there is around it. So it looks like underneath the printer there is some more accessories. So we have the two pieces to the spool holder and our power cord. And that looks like everything for the box. All right, so let's start here with the base. So there's some foam here underneath the bed. Also, I want to go ahead and wrap this bed because I do want to take it off. As you guys can see, there's a sheet of glass on top of the aluminum, and it holds on with these clips. And the thing I want to do is flip it over, and you guys can kind of see here what the bottom looks like. So it looks like we got some main cables, and there's an open area here. But let's go ahead and grab our tools. Well, funny enough, they don't include a wrench that is needed to take this cover off. So I got the right size, and we got 6 little bolts around. All right, so all the bolts are out, and we do have like this little seal here, and the funny thing is it's not even stuck on well. It just came right off by itself. I'm just gonna go ahead and pull it off, and this is what we see. So right off the bat, really happy to see a 350 watt MeanWell power supply, and it's the slim one. All right, so let's take a closer look. So here we got the MeanWell supply. You can go ahead and check the voltage. Mine is set correctly to 115. So the whole base is metal, and then we got this channel that goes in between for extra support on the gantry. This is our Y-axis motor. We got a little cooling fan here on the side, touchscreen display board, and it connects to the main board, which does have the 32-bit ARM processor. The stepper drivers are synced, but they are not removable, so they're permanent. And that's the board model ET4P. And right next to the main board we have the power plug, which is fused, and we have an on and off switch. And all the wires look nicely crimped and organized. So overall looks like a pretty solid build. So I'm going to put the cover back on and we'll start the assembly. Let's go ahead and check this bed, and it's definitely loose. And also we need to release it. If you guys can see, there's a green little trim piece here in the channel that keeps it from rolling around. And there's another one on the back side. So on this bed, what we have is 4 rollers, 2 on each side, and 2 of them are adjustable. As you can see on this side, we can see the eccentric nuts, and the other are stationary. And so we're just gonna simply grab our wrench that was included. And I'm not sure if you guys are gonna be able to see this, but we can see that our bed is wobbling a bit. And the best way to check is to stick your hand in there and spin the wheel. Check on both sides. So that roller over there seems to be fine, but this one's way too loose. And so all we need to do is just tighten it up by turning the eccentric nut. And what you want is the wheel to drag a bit as you're spinning it in one place. So if the wheel is too hard to spin, you're too tight. But if it's too loose, it's gonna wobble. So you wanna try to make it as loose as possible and still not have a wobble. And that usually works out really good. So it looks like mine is good now and traveling smoothly back and forth. And this is what you want. All right, so let's see what we got here in this paperwork. So it looks like we have a setup manual, a user manual, a parts list, all the parts included, a thank you letter from the company, and a warranty card. So the user manual kind of talks about how to use the printer and level the bed and things like that. So could be quite helpful if you're getting started. And then the setup manual here is instructions on how to put it together and get it going. And the steps are quite simple. We're going to put the gantry on the base, which is the upper portion of the printer, and also roll on the hot end onto the x-axis. And then part 2, we're going to put the belt on to the hot end. And then number 3 is just connecting everything, and 4 is the spool holder. So it should be quite simple and easy to get this thing assembled. So let's go ahead and pull our hot end out of this bag. So this is what it looks like. So we got a metal case, axial fan with the 3D printed duct, heat block, level sensor, looks like it's an inductive kind, large heat break cooling fan, and our wires and PTFE tubing is already pre-mounted. All we got to do is plug them all in on the other end. And that shouldn't be hard either because they're all labeled. All right, so let's grab our gantry, and you guys can see we need to take off this zip tie here. I'm going to run up the whole assembly just a little bit. And so it simply just sits on top of the base, and there's 2 holes here and threads underneath the channel that these 4 bolts will connect the base and the gantry together. We're going to grab our Allen wrench. Now there's different ways you can do this. You can, set it off to the edge of the table and go from the bottom, or you can just tip it over, try to get it like that. So whatever's easier. I think I'm just going to go ahead and tip it. You can see it sticking out right there. Put my wrench on it and start it into the channel. Yeah, it'd probably be easier to maybe, prop something under the printer if you're going to do it this way. Maybe we can even use this little spool holder here. There we go. All right, so we started the first one. Go ahead and start the second one. So I started them enough to just hold it, but you don't want to tighten it all the way yet until we get the other side on. I'm going to do the same thing here, prop it up. So we can tighten these up really hard now, and make sure you snug them up nicely, and then go to the other side and tighten the other ones up all the way also. All right, and so now our gantry is connected to the base. So for next part, let's grab our hot end with the tip pointing down. We're gonna roll it onto the x-axis channel, just like that. Well, actually guys, I think I got ahead of myself just a bit. We need our belt first. Go ahead and pull this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the belt, and with the teeth pointing down, we're going to put it into the groove of the channel and around this sprocket here, and on this side around the pulley. And now we can roll the hot end on while the belt is inside the channel. So basically we want the belt underneath the wheels of the hot end on the top here, so inside the channel. And if we look over here on the x-axis motor, there are 4 bolts, and these are also our adjustment bolts for the x-axis on the belt. You guys can see it moves it around back and forth. So we're going to move it all the way in for now. Let's flip the printer around. So looking at the back, there are 2 tabs that each side of the belt connects to. So the little end piece of the belt, the brass, goes down. Hopefully you guys can see right there. And the other end of the belt also the same way, just like that. And now going back to the front again, our belt now is going from one end around the pulley, then around the gear, and then back to the other end of the hot end. So now all we got to do is just tighten the whole belt with the adjustment here at the end. So we're going to pull it tight and tighten it up. So you don't want to make the belt too tight, but reasonably tight. So we're just going to simply tighten these 4 bolts, and that'll keep it in place. And you want to also go ahead and run this back and forth and look at the belt, make sure everything is traveling good. So mine looks like it's okay and good to go. So let's go ahead and flip the printer around again. So for the next part, we just need to plug everything in, and that's actually quite simple. And by the way, before I forget, you want to check your rollers same way like we did on the bed. There's a centric nut on this one here that you can adjust. You want to also check, make sure your tightness is good. So mine looks like it's adjusted perfectly. And you can check these on the edges also to make sure that they're okay too. Well, mine looks like are all good. So it was all pre-adjusted quite well from the factory. So the PTFE tubing will simply just go in the coupler and the extruder here. So we're just going to plug that in. Simple as that. It's on and the coupler is locked in. And right here we have a junction box that connects all these wires, that splits all the connections out. It's all labeled. Well, I guess most of it's labeled, but so here we have BL, so we just find the BL wire and plug it into there. Simple as that. So the TMP one is the white wires, so that's gonna go right below the BL, just like that. And next to the TMP we got the fan, plugs right there. And then on the very top we have a plug called end, and that's the end stop switch. And the last one left, and the only place it can plug in is right here where it says LV. We're gonna plug that in, and that's pretty much it, guys. So simple as that. All the wires are connected. Now we still do have this main wire that comes from the side of the printer here, and it just simply plugs in into our main plug here on the side. And so for the last part, all we need to do is just use one of these provided zip ties and zip this main wire to the frame. So yeah, also we do have a plug we need to plug in here that comes from the bottom to this Z-axis motor, just like that. So yeah, simple as that. We are finished with the connections of all the wiring. And as you guys can see, that was not very hard, and we're pretty much almost done with the assembly. We just have the spool holder. And so for the spool holder, it's quite simple. We're going to grab the metal bracket and then the plastic tube. So looking at this bracket, the smooth part is the back, and what looks to be like the back is the front. So we're going to put the brown pipe through and tighten it on the bracket. This is what it'll look like. And also in that bag of bolts, we have 2 little bolts and T-nuts that will start on the bracket like this. So now we're going to go up, and our spool holder is going to go on the top. The T-nut's going into the channel. So with the T-nuts, what you want to do is you want to unscrew it and then screw it in, and the T-nut should turn inside the channel and then lock it in. All right, and so just like that, our spool holder is on. Now there's one more thing we need to do, and that's install our glass back onto the bed. But before we do that, I want to peel off this layer. There's a protected layer over the aluminum. And now we can grab our glass, use these little clips that came with it. All right, and now we're officially done with the assembly. All right, so let's take a closer look at this printer. So this is what it looks like. It is quite tall because of that spool holder. So you guys can see how the spool holder sits. So we're gonna put our spool in here, and then that's gonna feed to the filament detector and then into the extruder. So looking here from the back, we can see we got a nice metal extruder, and I definitely like that. But what I'm not too crazy about is the filament detector. Not because it's a detector, but because the way it's set up, where the filament goes into it, it's plastic, it's gonna wear it out, and it's gonna be an issue after a little bit. Since the filament does have to come down and then churn, it's gonna rub and then start snatching eventually on this thing. To be honest, I wish they'd hurry up and do something about this. Either have metal inserts of some sort, or have some kind of little wheel here that directs it straight into the filament detector. We have one nice large cable that comes from the bottom to the junction box, so that really cleans it up. I like that. You guys can see the junction box there a little closer. So coming out of the extruder, the back of the hot end, going down, we can see we have our Y-axis motor, and this is actually how you adjust the tension on this belt by moving it here. The bed wiring has strain relief, so that's nice to see. Pretty decent sized knobs on the adjustment of the bed. High quality springs, but no insulation underneath. The Y-axis end stop switch. And here we have the X-axis end stop switch. And there is no Z-axis switch because it uses the leveling sensor for that. So looking at the front here, we're riding on a Y rail. And because the Y rail is connected to the metal base, there's no potential out of alignment or wobbling, so that's good to see there. And looking here on the very front, we got the logo and our touch screen. Go ahead and peel this protector off. Not a large screen, but that's okay. So going to the right, we have a fan here. And then to the left, there is a USB plug to connect to the computer. And then our micro SD port, our power switch that's fused, and the parameters of the printer. So yeah, overall looks like a pretty good printer. So let's go ahead and plug it in and power it on. All right, so the printer's plugged in. I'm gonna hit the power switch. And there it goes. So the first thing I like to do is check if all the motors work. So we're gonna click on settings and then the home button here. Okay, so it looks like X works, Y works, and now the Z. and it is using that sensor. Okay, so I can already tell that it's way too close to the bed because the nozzle is literally pushing down right on it. Well, that's not a good sign. But there are a couple of ways we can remedy that, and we'll go through it in a second. So let's go ahead and preheat everything. We'll go 210 on the hot end and 70 on the bed. Now, because this thing has an induction sensor and there's no Z-axis switch, the first thing you want to do is make sure that your bed here is as level as possible and that your springs are compressed about halfway or so. You know, depending on how you like them, a little tighter or looser, but as long as they're all compressed somewhat. And the reason you want to start with that is because you don't have any kind of hard point on the Z-axis. You know, if you lower the bed some, this will lower with it. And if you bring it up, this will come up with it. There's no hard point where it stops. So first get the bed as level as possible. So I just eyeballed mine, it looks fine. Make sure your springs are nice and tight. You know, not crazy tight, but usually about halfway tight is about right. So you can go up or down from there. But again, you won't be doing that too much because of this sensor here. And so if we go into prepare and then a level here, there's going to be an auto option and a manual option. The first thing we want to do is the manual option. So we're going to click on manual. You're also going to need some kind of paper. I'm just going to use this thank you letter here. So it's way too tight already. And what I can do is I can offset it here, the Z-axis. And this is one way you can, you know, go up and down. Another way you can adjust where this thing stops. On the sensor itself on the top, there's a little screw, and the printer did come with a little tiny screwdriver, and you can spin that screw to offset the sensor a bit. But that's not going to be too accurate, meaning it's a little hard to get it just right. So the best thing to do is just offset it here in the printer. So right now I offsetted it to be higher 0.2, and that seems perfect right there. So there are 4 corners we can click on. So let's click on corner 1. The reason you might want to go through this is you just want to make sure that all your corners are equal. Let's go to corner 2. Because the more level you get it before you hit the auto leveling, the better. So I'm just going to go around a couple times to make sure I'm pretty level. And you want to go a couple times because once you change one corner, you know, the other one changes also. Alright, so I think we're pretty good now. So we're really close to where it needs to be. So now that we know that the bed is really leveled to the X-axis, we can go ahead and click the out of bed leveling, which says out of here, right above the 4 corners. And it'll highlight it, and if you click it again, it'll ask you if you want to do out of bed leveling, and you're going to say yes. And so now it's going to go around and take all the measurements of the bed. So on the screen itself, it only shows like 9 points, but in reality, it's going to take 25 of them. It's going to be quite accurate. And there it goes. So now we just got to wait till it's finished probing the whole bed. Alright, so simple as that. It is done, and it says complete leveling okay here. And now everything is leveled and should be good to go. Now regarding the offset earlier that I showed you guys, I totally forgot that you do have to push the OK button here in order for it to register. So once I did that, you can see that it's coming down. So it looks like 0.2 might be a little loose. Let's try 0.15, 0.1, 0.5. Maybe everything is just fine. But yeah, if you push the OK, it'll register. So later, if you need to go a little up or a little down when you're printing, you can adjust it here in the setting. So here we have change filament. This is where we can control our extruder and load and unload filament. And then we have a preheat button also, which we preheated the bed and the nozzle, which both are really hot right now. So let's go ahead and open up this sample of PLA. And it is like this coil that's, yeah, pretty tangled, and I don't know why they still include these, honestly, but you know, take your time, untangle it somewhat. So once you get it reasonably untangled, I'm gonna set it up here. I'm not sure how good this is gonna work. Usually, sometimes these coils work better just laying on the ground. So after that, we're gonna go through the filament detector and then into the extruder. So I'm just gonna go ahead and push it all the way through so it comes out the hot end. So you could go in the change filament and, you know, push it through all the way. They give you choices from 1 to 50 centimeters, and we can click load or unload here. All right, I think we purged through. So let's go ahead and grab our micro SD card, and it is an 8 gig. we'll plug it in here upside down on the side of the printer. So let's go ahead and see if we have any kind of files in there. And sure enough, we looks like have a couple. It says pig and dog. So let's start off with the dog, and to select it, we got a navigation up and down here. And then once it's selected, you push OK, and there it goes. So it started. All right, so there it goes. Well, let's hope our offset is good. So the first thing it does is takes a measure in the middle. Okay, and it appears to be that we are offset pretty good. Actually, might be a little bit farther away. Well, maybe that's okay. It looks like the layer going down pretty good. It does appear that it needs to go down just a tiny bit. But since it's building a raft, I don't think we're going to have any issue there. So I think before we print the next one, drop it down to 0.05 just to get it a bit closer to the bed. But it looks like everything's fine, and we started our first print. So before I forget, I want you to hear what the printer looks like. I'm going to bring the mic in. So it's actually quite quiet overall, but the fans are definitely a little bit on the louder side, I would say. And it appears to be not the side one and not the hot end, but the power supply, which is a little surprising because of the kind that's in here. So it is mostly coming from under here, but yeah, it's not loud or anything for sure. And it definitely has the silent steppers, so you're not getting that annoying printer sound. So overall, it's quite reasonably quiet. So as it's printing, let's check out what we have here. So we can see our hot end temperature. We can adjust that right on the fly here, which is kind of cool. So you don't have to go to any kind of sub menu to adjust that. And you can toggle between the bed and the hot end by pushing this toggle here on the side. So we can adjust our bed temperature. And over here we have the print speed and then the fan speed. So you can adjust those two things down here. And on the very bottom we have how much time passed, which is 6 minutes. The progress bar, which is still at 0 now. So it looks like this is going to be a pretty long print. Well, there goes 1%. The file name down here does say 2.5 hours. Looks like dog. Then we have a pause, a stop, and looks like some settings, but they're not available. So yeah, that's all the options you get while you're printing, which is fine, but I would have liked to see a little bit more tuning as I'm printing, especially being able to offset the bed. That would have been quite useful in the beginning. But overall, nice layout and quite intuitive. So it looks like we're printing away and everything looks good. So we'll see how this print turns out. All right, so the little doggy is done. We'll click finish there and let's see. Okay, well, it popped off completely on its own. Look at that. If you wanted to use the glass like I am here, you might have to use a little bit of glue because there's a chance that this thing might come off, because it sure came off really easy there. And also we do have the option of installing the build sheet on top of the glass, and I think that's what we're gonna do. And if you did want to use glass, you can just flip it around and use the other end. But let's go ahead and take a look at the little dog. So just looking at it, it turned out really good. A lot better than I expected. The layers seem to sit really smoothly. We do have a little bit of stringing. Now I do see vibrations in the print, and it looks like it's mostly on the x-axis. Well, there's some y-axis vibrations maybe, but it appears to be mostly x. So maybe I have this belt a little tight here. So I might loosen that up just a bit to see if that helps. So yeah, a very good start for this printer. And it is on a raft. Let's see if it'll, okay, yeah, it comes right off, nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and install this build material onto the glass. And it is just a sticker, so we're just gonna peel one corner like this and then kind of line it up, I guess as close as possible. And then when it's close, push down on that corner that we peeled, and that should be pretty good. Then we're just gonna pull the sticker as we massage it in. So yeah, that wasn't very hard, and it looks like it turned out pretty good. So now I'm just gonna put the clips back on. Now it is gonna be a little hard to put them on because of the extra thickness, but they still do go on. So now we have the Built-Tech material here to print on. So I do have a bit more filament left. I'm gonna go ahead and print the other file, which is called Pig, and we'll see how that turns out. All right, so I had to stop the printer because I realized that when we added the Built-Tech, we didn't adjust for that in the offset. So we're gonna click on Prepare, and then go to Level, and then on our offset, we need to click OK. Nozzle is gonna come down. Okay, yeah, that's way too low, obviously. So what I'm gonna do is go up. So yeah, I guess that sheet added quite a bit. Actually, let's go ahead and preheat it also, because that's gonna matter. So yeah, make sure you preheat your bed and nozzle also when doing any kind of adjustments. So once you're happy with where it's at, we're gonna push OK to confirm it. And that should give us a new offset between the nozzle and the bed. All right, so let's go back and start printing the pig again. All right, so it looks like everything is okay. And the raft is going down nicely. So we're gonna let it print out and see what kind of print we get out of this one. So our little elephant is boogieing away and everything looks really good. We are about to run out of the filament that was included. So we're gonna see what happens and if the filament detection activates. All right, so it activated. It says pausing, please wait, please add filament. So it looks like our filament detection is working. Instead of pulling the old piece out, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab the new coil I got here that hopefully is enough to finish. And I'm just gonna stick it into the detector, push OK, and so it continues to print. So as this feeds out, I'm just gonna manually feed the other one in. But normally, you know, if you're changing a whole spool, you would pull that piece out and then start a new piece. And you guys can see the end there. So as that's going through, I'm gonna put the new piece in there. Maybe you guys can see or not. So now our new piece is grabbed by the extruder, and we just gotta make sure if a retraction happens, you know, it doesn't completely come out. So now we just started our new coil. Obviously that is not the normal way to do it, but that's how I do it if I wanna use the last bit of the filament without having any waste. And plus this is, you know, technically easier. So now the only part is that our new white is going to be a little bit different than the older one, because the older one is like a pearl of some sort. But that's okay because we'll still be able to finish the model and see how it looks like. All right, and our little piggy is complete, and you guys can see the different two colors that we had to use here. So the bed is actually still kind of warm. I guess I should have waited a little longer, but let's see if it's gonna. Okay, so the piggy's actually breaking loose from the raft, not from the bed. All right, so it's stuck to the bed pretty well. I might have to get a spatula or something. So let's just wait till it cools off a little more and we'll try to take it off. So let's start with the bottom on this piggy, and there's some more pieces here. And that broke off really easy. It's gonna be a little hard to see with this white here. This, what I thought was white, is more like, I guess, a pearl white or something. It's got a lot of silk in it. But if you guys can kind of see maybe the reflections, you can see the layers seem to be pretty good. But overall, it looks really nice. And you guys can see there's a slot here for the coins. So this is an actual piggy bank. So we still have a little bit of vibrations, looks like. And by the way, I did loosen the belt a bit. In order to get a better assessment of how this printer really prints, is we need to print a calibration cube and then a benchy in silk black. So I'm gonna go ahead and slice and print them, and we'll see how those turn out. But with these two prints so far, pretty happy with how it's coming out. So let's go ahead and try to scrape this off. Okay, so it comes off pretty easy once it gets going. Yeah, it doesn't appear to be any issues sticking to the bed, so that's good. So I definitely don't want to get any closer to the build plate than I am right now. All right, so we got the cube and the benchy printed. The benchy's still stuck on the bed, and we'll let that cool down a bit more. So let's go ahead and check this cube out. And when I saw this thing, guys, I was very happy because check out those reflections. So the x-axis practically has no vibration, or very minimum vibration, and no ghosting, or very, very minor right on the edges there, but you can almost not see it basically. So loosening the belts on this x-axis helped a lot. Now looking at the y, we have a little bit of a different story. Not only do we have some more vibrations, but we also have a bit of ghosting. This bed is quite heavy because it's glass, and also I am mounting my GoPro on here. That's a little more weight too. So after I saw the Y had vibration, I went to check this belt, the Y-axis belt, and I decided to loosen it some because it seemed like it was over tight. So the benchy here was printed with the Y being looser, so it does appear to be better. But in any case, this is what the Y looks like. So this is the X wall and the Y wall. The bottom, perfect, and the top looks good also. There does appear to be a little bit of a over extrusion maybe, but not by a lot. So let's go ahead and measure the cube with calipers. So we'll start with the X, and we can see it's pretty much right on the dot. Well, let's go to the Y now, and that also is very close. And now the Z, and pretty good on the Z too, a little bit over, but not bad. So yeah, quite accurate overall. So yeah, very happy how the cube turned out. Now let's go ahead and see if we can break this loose. It's stuck on there pretty well, but it does pop off. So it looks like this build surface is working pretty well. All right, so here we have the benchy and looking really good. So let's see if we can get some reflections going here. You guys can see how nice the wall is right there. Beautiful. And this filament here is silk black. It really shows everything. So if there's any kind of vibrations or layering, it shows up really easily here. So we can see some vibration, or I guess ghosting around those circles there. Same on this side, you guys can see. So that didn't disappear. And on the front here, you guys can see very nice layer bonding. This is our seam here. And the wall here. Again, on the back, we can see ghosting, and it's still on the Y, so it looks like loosening that belt a little bit didn't really help. And so it must be something else. So let's look at the rest of the benchy here. So on the box, we can see that we have a little slit there. Now usually that's a good indication of precision, but we'll check that out when we print the bearing. So we can see that all the X-axis walls look really nice and straight overall. But then when we get to the Y-axis walls, we have some vibration. So it looks like cooling is pretty good. Overhangs are decent. And the bottom is perfect, and we're printing straight to the bed. And also you guys can see we have practically no stringing at all. All right, so I'm really happy with how these are turning out. So I'm going to go ahead and print quite a few more models, and we'll check out how those come out. All right, and so these are all the prints that we printed. So overall, the machine performed very well with no issues, seems to be very reliable, and just prints like you would expect. So we've seen the dog, the pig, the calibration cube, the benchy. Let's go ahead and look at this little frog. So I really like printing this frog because it really shows if the printer can do small detailed prints. And there's a lot of interesting shapes going on, and you guys can see that the frog turned out beautifully. Now for all the prints that I did on this printer, I printed them all in 0.2 millimeter height at 50 millimeters per second, and the temperature was 200 on the nozzle and 50 on the bed. So, and you guys can see here on the bottom of the frog, usually this part is really hard to print because of its angle here or overhang, and it did excellent. Not very much droopage under the arms, which is also a problem usually. So yeah, it did an excellent job. No stringing between the eyes. So yeah, once I printed the frog, I knew that this printer is going to do a great job. The next thing I wanted to do is this octopus, and the thing that this print really shows off is that you have a lot of little pieces that have to combine together. And so this shows, you know, if the bed sticks good enough where they don't pop off. And also the tolerances on all the feet, you guys can see, are quite good. Nothing got stuck, and a lot of retractions on this print. And again, in 0.2 layer height, very nice print. And we can see here on the smoother parts, also pretty good. There was a little bit of layer shifting right here somewhere, but it's very minor. But overall, very solid print. So this printer did an excellent job with this octopus here. But speaking about accuracy and precision, I printed this bearing, and this has individual gears that are supposed to turn once it's done, but you guys can see that it is not turning, it's fused together. So this printer is over extruding just a little bit, and it needs to be adjusted. So yeah, not able to make this bearing spin, but adjusting the E-steps on the extruder should fix that. So this next print here actually took a lot of time to print. This is a large, pretty detailed print. So we can see that we do have a bit of layering. Now I'm not sure if this layering is from the nozzle moving around or just from under extrusion, and then maybe some over extrusion, because I'm not crazy about how the filament feeds through the plastic filament detector, making me think that maybe it's starting to catch a bit. But in any case, we do have some layering there just a bit, but overall very nice print. The bottoms are beautiful, and this is straight to the bed. But as we go up, we can see the details are just amazing. So there's a lot of detail going on in this print, and if you look inside, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's actually a guy inside holding the wheel. Probably not going to be able to see that, but in any case, lots of detail. Did very well with retractions. So overall, I would say quite successful, and this is what you can expect. All right, and we did have to have our astronaut as usual, and this is full size at 0.2 layer height. And the thing about the astronaut, it doesn't have very much surface area to grab to, and this bed grabs very well, so that's a plus. So if we look at the reflections, very good print. The layers are sitting quite well. There is a little bit of layering here or there, You can kind of see it here on the helmet. It's not severe, but it is a little bit there. But as far as overhangs, very nice. So great cooling. And we can see under his fingers here also perfect. So overall, a great print, except for a little bit of layering here and there. So obviously we have to do the spaceship too, and this is in spiralized mode, and also the full height at 250 millimeters. So you can see how high that is. So I think we have 4 layers on the bottom and then spiralized to the top 1 layer around. And it feels really solid. And I think this is because it over extrudes just a little bit, making it a more solid print. So this is in silky silver. Again, not perfect. You can see a layering here and there just a little bit in certain areas. And there is a little bit of vibrations in the print. And there is quite a bit of ghosting around this G here, and some around the logo, but not terrible. And as we go up, it usually gets much nicer here, and also looks good, but still a little bit of layering. And when we go to the very top, this part here is quite hard to print because it's quite small and thin, and it starts to melt away. And so this is, you know, quite normal, but it was still able to finish it, and even did a pretty good job on the ball on the top. So yeah, did quite well on spiralized mode. So I wanted to do one more spiralized, which is this huge vase you see here, and it's actually still stuck to the bed. And this is one of the things I wanted to note, is that the build surface on the bed does stick very well. So at times it is a little bit hard to pull off the models. Because we have glass underneath, which is a plus, it's very uniform and flat. It makes it where it prints very even all over the bed. But because we're not able to flex it, we have to pry off our models. So that makes it a little bit difficult to work with. So having a spatula that you can scrape the models off was definitely necessary for this printer. And this vase is spiralized mode with 4 layers on the bottom, so you know it's quite fragile, so we have to be a little careful, and we have a lot of surface area here on the bottom. But as you guys can see, I can stick the spatula under there and it's coming off pretty easily. And there we go. And this is all of the surface area that it grabbed to, so it's quite large. The good part is that when the bed cools down, it does seem to kind of release somewhat. So all of these prints seem to come off relatively easy. And when I say easy, I mean for this type of bed. Definitely this would be much harder than, you know, a flexible bed. In any case, let's look at this vase. So the vase turned out nice. The bottom is nice and smooth, very uniform. So as we look at the sides here, we can see patterns in the print, but overall the layers are sitting very well. Again, there is a tiny bit of layering, not very much. I'm not sure if you guys can even see it, but as far as uniformity, very nice and clean. And if I get a little closer, maybe you can see the reflections. So yeah, there is that, you know, print pattern in it. And I'm not sure if that's just part of the model or the printer. Looking at it up close, you can kind of see the little vibrations and layering. But if you go a bit farther, it looks great, actually amazing. You can actually put water in this and it will hold it. And it's quite strong enough where you can flex it a bit and it won't break. I mean, obviously this will also depend on the filament you use. And we can see here on the top, we got a pretty good thick layer. So, and also to mention that both of these are at 250 millimeters tall. So it's the same as the spaceship as far as the tallness, and this is the maximum height. So overall, guys, I'd have to say it's a pretty solid printer. There's no fiddling around or anything really to mess with. Once you get it going, it just works. And that's definitely a plus. Also, it does have all the modern features of filament detection, power off resume. We got a really clean UI with a decent sized touchscreen. Out of bed leveling, so that could be a great feature if you're looking for that. Definitely like the all metal extruder assembly. Heated bed, but not insulated, but doesn't take too long to heat up. And most importantly, the silent stepper drivers. So that is huge, because stepper noise can get quite annoying, especially if you're constantly around the printer and it's constantly making that noise. You get tired of it eventually. So that's definitely a great feature here. So overall, I have to say the Pro just makes everything a little better over the regular ET4. So if you guys are interested in this printer, I'm going to have some links in the description below. Check it out. And if you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, I got more 3D printers coming up, so stay tuned for that. And also check out my pretty extended list of 3D printers I've reviewed already. I'm sure you'll find something interesting there. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.